So it looks like the champions have started the season with a bang, a 3-0 victory against Coventry, newly promoted. Frank Lampard in charge. Comprehensive victory from Arsenal. Very, very good performance. Probably just the type of performance you want to kind of give, especially after winning the Premier League last season. You kind of want to start the season, and it just looks like everything is in control. They followed on from their, win against Manchester City in the same kind of fashion. To be honest with you, the way that they kind of dispatched, Coventry. Yes, I know Coventry, newly promoted team. They're not that good in comparison, obviously, to Arsenal, but still, Arsenal had a, job to do, and they did it very, very well, man. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at the game, performances, etc., etc. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. So yeah, like I said, man, yeah, it was a good opening night for for Arsenal, in terms of the game, in itself. As I said, 3-0 victory. Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, and Martin Ødegaard with the goals. And listen, as I said, it's one of those. I know no one's getting gassed, excited. It's one game, right? You know what I mean? And you're playing against a newly promoted side, a side who hasn't been in the Premier League for a very, very long time. And Arsenal obviously champions. So expected, I had them down actually to win 6-0. That was my pair. I said I think they'll absolutely slap them, but they beat them in a different kind of way. They beat them in a different kind of way. They didn't, obviously would have been great to score more goals, and probably they should have scored more goals. They had 6 shots on target to Coventry's 1. Yeah, Coventry didn't really show anything. And I think one of the main things that I noticed even before a ball was kicked is I looked at Arsenal's team, right? And I said, oh, let's look at the lineup. Let's look at, the kind of players that they've got. Because it's always good when you're able to see the team sheet, but then also let's see what the bench looks like. Because, Bruno Guimaraes, I believe, picked up a knock. So he wasn't obviously going to be available. So now you're looking at it thinking, all right, let's see, kind of what you've got left, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, when I look at the 11 and everything, you can see there, look, Raya, White, Mascara, obviously, Saliba, obviously injured, Gabriel, Calafiori, Rice, Miles Lewis, Skelly, Ødegaard, Saka starting, Tzolis, and Kai Havertz, so then you look at the bench, and that's when I really looked at Arsenal and I said, okay, yeah, these guys, they're being serious now. They're being serious. You look at the bench, you got Kepa, don't really care about him. He's not that good anyway. Nkapie, Eze, Wanyeri, Marino, Zubimendi, Max Dauman, Gyökeres, Madueke. That's a good bench. That's a very, very good bench. If you need someone to help, win the game, you've got your Eze's, Wanyeris, you've got the Victor Gyökeres's, Madueke's. Cool, you're covered in that department. If you need someone in the midfield where you just need to change it up a little bit, maybe keep a bit more control, you've got Zubimendi, you've got Mikel Marino. Again, you've also got the likes of your Eze's and that, but Eze obviously a bit more further advanced in what he would be, trying to do. And then obviously you got your defender in Nkapie. If anything, they might even just be looking at potentially even adding another defender to that bench, potentially, just more as a cover, because Nkapie obviously can play on that left-hand side. He can play at centre-back as well, but they'd have no one really to play out there on the right. So then you'd be looking at someone like Mosquera having to go out there, or maybe Declan Rice potentially. So obviously bringing in Ezri Konsa does make a lot of sense in that regards when I think about it now, because you can just add him to the bench, probably take out Max Dauman. If anything, don't need another attacker. But maybe for this game, obviously, you didn't necessarily need him. But these are the kind of options that I was talking about. This is what you need, especially in the Premier League. You need that depth. You need to be able to say, Victor Gyökeres was playing, majority of last season. So Martin Zubimendi was starting, the beginning of last season. Eze coming on here and there kind of thing, but very good option to have. Nkapie, the same thing. Madueke, again, when Saka was injured, who was filling in? It was Madueke, did a decent job there. It's just good to have these kind of backup players, kind of thing, for their team. So, yeah, that was one of the things I really did notice, because I really wanted to see what that team looked like, when it's competitive game on paper. How does it look? But listen, it was what it was. And then obviously Coventry, they kind of went with a 4-3-3 themselves. I actually like the way that they did their. People didn't like it, but I like the. Excuse me, I like the graphic that they've got going on here. I don't know why some people didn't like it, but obviously they kind of set up with a I want to call it 4-3-3, so to speak, with the three midfielders, three central midfielders in there. Striker Sims, yeah, he was very, very isolated in the game. I didn't think he did that well anyway in terms of like trying to hold up play and things like that. I actually think it would have been better served, but obviously probably because he just joined. I think Awonini, yeah, that they obviously signed from got from Nottingham Forest. I actually think he would have been a better striker to start with. I think he can really give someone like Gabriel and Mosquera problems. He's given them the kind of problems before in terms of his strength, his hold up play. You know, he can connect with the midfielders and the ball can stick with him, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, when you've got someone like that, I think in games like this, again, Frank Lampard will learn. He just came in as well in terms of Awonini. So, of course, maybe that was one of the reasons why. But I just feel like with those kind of things, that can always help you in games like this where we're going to be under the cosh for the majority 80 minutes of this game, right? They're playing at home. They're the best team in the league, one of the best teams in Europe. They've got some of the best players in the world. It's a lot of things that are going to go against you in these kind of moments. So I think these are the kind of players that potentially Lampard will learn need to actually start playing in these kind of games. But regardless, listen, you still got a job to do, you know. So listen, it was just one of those unfortunate things, you know, in terms of how the game kind of went. You know, Arsenal again, like I said, just full momentum in the game. Coventry had maybe like random moments here and there, kind of thing. But one player I did really want to take a look at, but definitely wanted to talk about was Martin Ødegaard. Martin Ødegaard. I think Sky, Jamie, and that, I think they gave him the man of the match. I'm not 100% sure. I believe it was between him and Tzolis. Could have given it to Tzolis, to be fair, as well. I thought that was a good debut from him. He looks like a real live wire. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, kind of what Manchester City, what Arsenal kind of do, you know, when it comes to a player like that. Do they go and still upgrade in that position? Do they still feel that they need another option there? Who knows? I think they do. I think it's great to have him if you're going to have him as your main guy, or even just as the rotation option. But I do think that they need to potentially have another option over there. But maybe Eze can, you know, come over there. We'll have to wait and see. But Martin Ødegaard, I think his performance again today, again, it's Coventry. But it was very similar to the performance I saw against Manchester City in the Community Shield. More so, as you can see, look, 6 touches in the opposition box. I don't really care about the defensive stuff. Listen, 4 ground rules, you know, out 4-1, brilliant, 3 tackles, created 3 chances. It was more that, I think, and I think that's what I hear a lot of Arsenal fans complained about with Martin Ødegaard, is that they didn't feel, you know, you're taking too long on the ball. A bit like the problem that, you know, Liverpool fans we've had with Curtis Jones. You're taking too long on the ball, release it quicker. There's opportunities to, you know, potentially get more goals and maybe see a situation a bit quicker. In these last 2 games, from what I've seen of Ødegaard anyway, it does look like that has changed. I know, I think again, it could have been a fake quote. I can't remember. I'm sure I read somewhere about Mikel Arteta allowing the team to have a bit more freedom. You know, he's managed this team for the last 6-7 years or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, nearly winning the league in other seasons and stuff like that, not getting over the line, etc., right? He's been kind of almost micromanaging this team, you know, from top to bottom, you know, every single player. I feel like it's just been micromanaged. And I'm sure I read somewhere about him allowing them the expressive freedom to be able to kind of just play their game. He trusts them now, which is understandable. You know, and it's funny because everything's all in hindsight, right? Before you would have moaned, like, why is he like this, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, Arsenal were failures. You know, they were a team who couldn't get over the line. They're not a team who wins things consistently. So to try and build that up is going to take some time. Again, everything is always going to be in hindsight. But now that they're in this position where they've won a Premier League, they finally won a trophy of significance after 20-odd years. Now you're looking at them and you're thinking, well, I can trust these guys now. I can trust Ødegaard. I can trust Saka. Before, you couldn't really trust them. You know, they've shown that you couldn't be trusted, which made sense. So I've got to continue micromanaging. And now they're potentially, and again, it's only been the 2 games, right? So I haven't got a clue what this looks like 10 games in. He might completely revert back to type. But so far, Ødegaard, and I think if he continues, I think him, Miles Lewis-Skelly, I look at those 2, and I think they could be really good players for Arsenal this season. Now, they're going to be players that you look at and think, yeah, they've helped Arsenal to win the league. Because obviously, you look at Arsenal's attack, I don't think it's that great at all. I think it's probably on like I wouldn't say a mid-table level, but it ain't far off when I look at that attack. You know what I'm saying? Like, Havertz is good in his own right, kind of thing. Saka's obviously a brilliant winger. Tzolis still remains to be seen. Obviously, Madueke kind of thing. Gyökeres, yeah, kind of thing. It's okay. It's okay. it could be 10 million times better. And I did think that that was going to be an area that Arsenal were going to improve upon in the summer. Haven't really done so, if I'm being totally honest. Maybe that's something that they look at towards the back end of this transfer window. But yeah, when we're looking at like the midfield looks kind of cool, looks kind of set. And again, if you can get Martin Ødegaard kind of doing what he'd been doing over, let's say 3-4 seasons ago, like when he was on loan at Arsenal, then obviously joined them during that kind of period, he was like a different player. You know, Jamie Carragher mentioned, I think on comms about, you know, he thought he was going to be this kind of Kevin De Bruyne type of player. And I thought that as well. And he was heading there, but it's not really materialized. You know what I mean? He's kind of gone a bit back, if I'm being totally honest with you. But listen, this could be the renaissance, you know, for Martin Ødegaard moving forward. But we'd have to wait and see. Like I said, I felt good performance, calm, did what they needed to do. Yeah, we just kind of move on to the next game. But leave your thoughts in the comment section, Arsenal fans and fans of the Premier League. How are you guys feeling after that first game of the season, 26-27? As I said, I've got Arsenal as champions for this season. 1 down, 37 to go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people. And I'll catch you guys real soon. Bye.